Hey crafty people, welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! Oh, welcome back. So for today's video, we are going to try a couple techniques for adding like a pop of color to our printables for like, these are, sepia toned ones, and I think these are all sepia. There's some black and white. I think these might all be sepia toned too, although this is a little more black and white. But basically for your sepia and black and white digitals, if you've got vintage photos, like actual real photos, some of these techniques will work, some may not. And the important thing here, at least for the technique that I think we're going to start with, is that these are all printed out on matte photo paper. If you print it on regular paper, which I normally print my digitals on Hammermill premium color copy paper, which comes in, I do 60 pound for my journal pages and the 32 pound for like ephemera bits and things like that I'm gonna fussy cut out. First technique will not work on that because the ink from an inkjet printer is not waterproof on regular printer paper, but will be on matte photo paper. So let me cut these guys apart and get the things I need, and we'll try the first technique out. Okay, so the first technique we are going to use is one I got from Louisa Heinzel, and I will try and find the video and link it down below. But she figured out you can make distress inks and I think inks and oxides. I know she uses oxides. I don't remember if she's used inks on this technique. Permanent if you stamp on matte photo paper. So I picked one that had a lot of dark spaces and one that had some that was lighter that we're going to play with. And we're going to start with this one. And I'm going to find the stamps I wanted to use. So these are stamps from Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous, one of their mixed media sets where you get a stencil and a stamp. And the stencil is THMM 159. And these are a smaller version of his wildflower stamps. I have the bigger ones, but we're going to go with the smaller ones for this because I think they suit the scale of the piece better. And I think we're going to use this guy and maybe add some of this one. So let's start with this and put them, let's get them on a block so we're ready. That one on that block. Put this one on this block. And now I need to decide what colors I want to use on this guy. And I think, I am going to use my stamping mat, even though we're going to be getting very wet. So we're going to see how this goes. I think I'm going to go Wilted Violet. I think I'm going to stick with one color because I have not tried this yet. We're going to give it a go and see how it works. And I did want to grab a butterfly. So let's grab a little butterfly stamp. Are any of these small enough to work? I think this little guy will actually work. Okay. Put him on a block too. Also not sure how well it's going to work with clear stamps because I'm pretty sure when I've seen Louisa Heinzel do it, she's using red rubber. So total experiment. Step one is you've got to get your paper wet. And now we are gonna stamp our flowers. And I'm gonna dry off my stamp. So I want to stamp it again. I feel like it's getting dry faster than I want it to. Let's close that up because we don't want to get that wet. Did not want to put that onto And then we're gonna take our paper towel, press down on it. And so we've got, let's dry it. Okay, and now that it's dry, we can spray it again and add more flowers, and these flowers won't run. See, normally when you re-wet oxides, the ink will start reactivating and will run again, and you'll notice it's not budging. She may have spritzed after too. Let's give it a spritz so it will oxidize the ink, and then we'll do this. And then dry it again. And I'm actually picking up ink from my mouse pad on the back. There you go. We've got some color added in, and I think I kind of want to add another color onto here. And yeah, that I'm picking up from the mat because it's got Oxide inks or Distress inks stamped on it, and wetting it is reactivating those, and they're coming up on the back of the piece. But I think I want to add some peacock feather. Bring over our paper towel. And dry that. Okay, so it's mostly dry. I'm going to set it aside, let it dry the rest of the way, and then I'm going to stick it under something heavy to flatten it out. But I really like that added color to it, and that creates a cool effect. Now it's probably going to show up even better on the other one we picked out, because it's lighter, so there's, you know, it will show up far more on the lighter colored paper than it will this dark paper, but I really like how it just added some color to that, and it has a really cool effect from spritzing it with water and then stamping with the oxides. Again, I'm not 100% sure whether she did this with the Distress inks, although it should work with Distress inks, but I wouldn't on a dark color use Distress inks because they're a dye-based ink, so they're translucent, so it wouldn't show up at all, or hardly at all, on this dark background. They might show up pretty good on this background, but I think I'm going to stick with the oxides, and I'm going to change up my colors. And I think I'm going to start with some Spun Sugar, and I'm going to pull out, where is the stamp set? This one, because it matches kind of the flowers on here, and I can do taller stalks. And I may use this one too. We'll see. Let's grab a stamp block. All right, step one. Let's move stuff out of the way. So I just grabbed a clean though stained cloth to put down, so I stopped picking up the ink off of the mouse pad. So let's start by wetting our paper. And I'm gonna just do a little water on the back because that should help flatten it out a little bit. There we go, very wet, so these are gonna be more watery when we stamp. And I'm going to start with Stressed Oxide Spun Sugar and see how that turns out. That is very light. All right, I think I'm going to grab Kitsch Flamingo because that should show up better. Actually, let's stamp a few in the Spun Sugar as kind of like a background, and then come back in with the Kitsch Flamingo and stamp over in some spots. So let's do that. Grab our Kitsch Flamingo. I don't think I'm wetting my paper enough to get like the more watery effect that Louisa Heinzel got when she did this technique. Let's grab the other flower too and do some of that one. It's also rather warm in here because, well, I live in Florida and it's that time of year where it starts getting warm, and I had the TV on, so I want to do another one, but I don't. Let's do it there. And then let's wet it again. And with our paper towel. I think before drying it, I'm just gonna get it really wet again and stamp some more of the other flowers in here. I'm gonna do both pinks. We'll do some in the Spun Sugar. And I'm wiping off before I re-ink because I don't want to introduce water to my Oxide ink pad. Let's add a butterfly, which I picked a different butterfly stamp, and this one's a very old Stampendous, and I think up here is way too dry for the technique. Kind of regret doing that one. But otherwise, I really kind of like the shadowy effect of doing the Spun Sugar. Let me dry this, and I'll be back because it takes a fair bit because this is very wet. Okay, so this one's mostly dry. Again, I'm going to let it dry completely and put it under a book. And then this one's still fairly damp, but I wanted to play with it some more. Actually, what I did was I set this aside to dry on its own because my fingers were getting a little hot from using the heat gun. And so I was like, oh, let me play while we're waiting on that to dry. And I got I went really heavy-handed in the water. And so, like, this is Shaded Lilac, this background here. I don't know how well it's showing up on camera. Like that area in here got very washed out because it was very wet. And then over here's Cracked Pistachio. And it's really interesting how you've got like, this is, you know, the kind of green you expect. And then the rest of the stem's blue. And like over here, I think I stamped Salvaged Patina and Cracked Pistachio next to each other when it was only like damp but not super wet. And they look almost the same. And then this is Salvaged Patina over here and some more Cracked Pistachio and then the Shaded Lilac. So I really like that color combo, and I really like the effect I got when I went super heavy with the water. So more water is better for this technique. I think you get more interesting effects because yeah, when I stamped over here, it was a little less wet than when it was over here. And yeah, it's a fun technique to play around with. So I highly recommend just taking out your Oxide inks and playing on matte photo paper. So that's the key to this technique, is the matte photo paper. All right, let me set those aside and let them dry the rest of the way. The next technique that we're gonna use also needs to be done on matte photo paper. Okay, so for the next one, you also want to make sure you're using matte photo paper, because I am going to use my distress watercolor pencils. Now, if you don't have distressed watercolor pencils, you could use regular watercolor pencils. You could use watercolor paint. You could smoosh distress ink or any dye-based ink onto like a block and pick it up with a wet paintbrush and paint with that. So you don't have to have the watercolor pencils to do this. You just need some kind of water-soluble medium that you can color with and or paint with. So give me one sec. I think for this little cutie, I want to color her flowers and make them pop. And I think I want to go pink, and I'm going to grab Picked Raspberry. And I'm just going to color in the flowers. And this is going to work because these are light in color. Like coloring her dress, you're not going to get much of a result doing that because her dress is dark and watercolors are translucent. This is not the smoothest of surfaces to be coloring on because I've got smoosh all over it. And let's do her little bracelet. And maybe I'll do some on here so you can see how it works on a darker color. There, and then the next step is we'll add water, but I figure I might as well color this one in first. And I think this may be the one that went in. I have two different matte photo papers, and this one feels a little different than this paper. And what happened was I was able to get like one sheet to print on the one type of matte photo paper, and then it stopped. It refused to print anymore. I was like, are you kidding me? And then I got another matte photo paper I had to print, so I went with that for the rest of the printing. But yeah, my printer was being really obnoxious. Like I was really annoyed with it. All right, let's find my purples because I think I'm gonna go trying to decide Wilted Violet or Dusty Concord. I think I want the brightness of Wilted Violet. So let's go with that one. And for this one, I'm gonna do her dress and some of the flowers. And what I think I'm gonna do is go lighter handed on the dress and then add more pigment to the flowers. Go darker at the top and just have it fade out as it goes down. So now I'm going to grab a paintbrush. I've got a little cup of water off to the side. I don't think it's on camera. Oh yes, it is. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dip my paintbrush and come in and move this around just to kind of smooth it out. Lighten it up a little. I'm just going to grab a little off the back of the pencil, straight from the pencil, to get a few spots that I kind of missed. Ooh, and that's very heavy, so we're gonna just come in and smooth that out. It actually works pretty good over that, so I might have been able to get a decent amount of color on her dress had I done it over her whole dress. I will say when using the watercolor pencils, they don't move as well once they've dried. So you want to make sure you do everything you want to do with them while the paper's still wet, because once the paper dries, they don't tend to move as well as they did you know, they'll move a little bit, but not, they won't be as reactive. So there we go. We've added just some pops of color on her. I like colored and it's just looking chalky over here. So let's see if we can blend that out a little bit so that it doesn't look so chalky on her dress. There we go. So there's another way to add a pop of color, and I'm looking at her and part of me is like, I want to do a pop of color for her eyes, and part of me is like, no, you're just gonna mess that up, leave it alone. So I'm gonna leave it alone. We're gonna set her aside and work on this one. Let me get out our Wilted Violet in case we want to add more color as we go. I'm gonna do, I think, the flowers first. Then I can gauge how intense they are so I can decide if they need more right off the bat. And I think they do. I think I want that color to be a little bit more intense. So I'm going to pull from the back, mostly because if I want to use the actual pencil point again, once you wet these, they become very, very soft and you can't really use them as pencils until they dry out, which the last time I used these, it was one of those things I knew, but I completely forgot about while I was filming. And one of my watchers left a comment on there pointing out that that's a good idea. And it is, because then you don't have to worry about your tip not working. Because yeah, once you get it wet, it takes a little while. I'm gonna go with the water again because it's looking a little chalky where the ink is spread out a little bit, or the pencil stuff around my flowers, and I don't know if that's showing up on screen or not, but I'm just gonna try and clean that up a little bit so there's not like a chalky halo around the flowers. Come in up here because it's making the dark area a little chalky. Really like how this one came out. I have a feeling I'm going to print this out and do this in a bunch of different colors because I really like the look of that. And it just adds just a pop of color, just a little bit more interest to these beautiful pieces. Like, I mean, this little girl is absolutely stunning. I mean, they're lovely, but I like adding just that little pop of color to them. All right, so those are done. I'm gonna set this one aside. It definitely needs some drying time. And we can move on to our next technique. Dagnabbit. I went to grab stuff for the next technique, which is adding liquid pearls, and apparently didn't start the video again. I am having a real problem with that today because I did that for a video that will have already aired by the time this one comes up, where I completely didn't. I thought I hit the record button and I didn't. So you completely missed the first one I did, where I used Hydrangea, Ivy Green, and Peacock to just add some interest to the wings of a fairy. I'll show you that when it's dry because I moved it out of the way to keep me from sticking a finger in it. And this one, I'm just doing some mint green and baby pink to add a few pops of color on the flowers. So I'm just gonna add a few dots of the green, which I think this is partially clogged and it's not coming out very well. Right, let's get rid of that mess that I just made. And try again. And
tip I gave when doing the other one is if you stop squeezing and then rotate, you can avoid getting the like Hershey Kiss shape. I think I just need to make these a little bit bigger. Like, I don't know what's going on with the green. The green is not coming out very nicely. Well, since they're flower shaped, I can just kind of make that more of a flowery shape as opposed to a dot, which is what I was kind of going for, is just some little dots. You can also tap it from behind to get them to flatten out if they're still wet. Like this guy is like almost dry, so we're just gonna smush it down with our finger. Yeah, the green is not making me happy right now. All right, let's try the pink. Yeah, she's coming out better. As that one blobs out, and we'll just make it into a little bit of a shaped flower. I'll do one more shape-ish, like slightly more than a circle, blobby kind of flower over here. Do it on these flowers too. Very messy. Let's clean that up a little bit. And you know what? I'm gonna take this tool and just kind of use it to spread it out. I'm gonna try doing the green for one of those. Do like a blob and use my tool to kind of spread it out to make it more like a flower. I'm just wiping the excess on a paper towel. Regret doing this, but I think I might want to do the butterflies. Didn't come out too bad. I think squirting it onto the tool and painting it on with the tool worked much better than doing direct to the paper. So let's do this guy in green and do it that way. And we're gonna turn so I can see what I'm doing. I think that worked. All right, I'm gonna go set this somewhere where I'm not gonna mess it up and let it dry. And once this one and the other one that I didn't film are all dry, I'll show you what they look like. Okay, so here's what the liquid pearl ones look like now that they're dry. Bring it up closer so you can get a better look. So there I just did details on her wings. And this one we did the dots and flower shapes and the butterflies. And I've been filming this over several days, and I started editing up to these guys, and I realized with how much footage I had left to do for the other two ideas I have for adding a pop of color, the video is going to be way too long because I can't upload things that are longer than an hour. And actually, if they're longer than 55 minutes, YouTube tends to give me fits trying to upload them. And sorry, the sun's setting outside, so I think you got some weird shadows going on. So I think instead of doing it as one long video, I'm breaking this down into two parts. So for the first part, we did 3 ways of adding a pop of color. Are liquid pearls, and then we did the distressed watercolor crayons, and we did these two on camera, and I actually did another one off camera, and I love how it worked on this piece as well, kind of like with that one. So I'm probably going to be printing off more of these guys to do them in some different colors. And then we've got our Distress Oxide wet stamping technique. So we got those. That one I didn't do on camera, but these two I did, just to give you the idea of how it looks like, how it looks on a darker piece versus a lighter piece. So there we go. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.